watching the Daystar Television Network.
Jesus said, you called him a zealot. I called him Simon. I just want the noun. You can have the adjective. And that's the beauty of what God does for us. He ain't never called you, come here drunkard, come here whore, come here prostitute, come here gay. He ain't never called you that. He just said, John, come to me. I'm the one that can change the adjectives that describe your life. It's this kind of egocentric way of looking at life that if life doesn't turn out like you planned it, then it's something that you have done wrong to inherit all of this affliction that has come upon your life. I don't mean to burst your egomaniacal disposition, but you're not that important to the cosmos that God would postpone all of life just to execute affliction on you all by yourself. Sure, I had that. I was full when I went out, but now that I've come back, I buried all of them in foreign sorrow. Don't call me peaceful. There ain't no peace in me. There's nothing but despair because I'm afflicted. I got many wounds. I got burdens. I got stripes. I don't know. Don't call me Naomi. But you know what? God can help you when you go out full and come back empty.
I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home again empty. I want to tag this text, what do you do when you're on empty? What do you do? How do you make it when you're on empty? Even when you want to give up, there's some elasticity within us that calls us just to bounce back, to get back at it, to be back on the road and journey. And so it is. In the middle of a changing conflict and catastrophe, Naomi gets up, pulls herself up, and moves forward, but decides to remain in Moab. Her sons now have reached the age of marriage. And she says to her boys, Mahlon, and says to Chilion, that find your wife, and they do, among the Moabites. The names of the sons are interesting. One son speaks of weakness, the other name speaks of sickness. And yet weakness and sickness are going to have to bear their own families, to bear their own burdens. And so they marry Orpah and Ruth. And things are going quite well at this moment. There's nothing that's out of the ordinary other than here, two Jewish boys, Hebrews, married to Moabites. But you know what they learn, what I want to say to you? Through the teaching of Naomi, they learn not to measure people by adjectives, but to look at people by nouns. Carlisle Marney, who was a great Southern Baptist preacher, says one of the great ventures of life for every human being is to learn to put adjectives and nouns in their proper places. And so when people met a person, they didn't meet a person, they met a color, they met a race. Naomi teaches her boys, don't go looking for a Moabite, go find a wife. And so she's to be applauded, that she looks beyond the conventional scheme of things and actually finds a person for her sons to settle down and nurture family. But the scandal of barrenness just doesn't seem to lift its weight off of this family. The emptiness of barley in Bethlehem, the death of Elimelech to Naomi, and now, in a change of dramatic events, something else happens. The sons of Naomi, sickness, weakness, die. And now we have 3 widows left: Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth. And then the decision to make which way do we go comes back into play. Naomi is able to read the times, and she sees now that Moab brings for her too much weightiness. It's too much bereaved memories, the loss of her husband, his death, the dying of her sons, the remaining of her daughter-in-laws. And now as she looks at the time, she begins to wonder, what do we do now that all of this has been taken away from me? And all of a sudden, Naomi begins to focus in on herself. And the caravan drivers who come through Moab has dropped word after 10 years that there has been a lifting of divine sanctions of the absence of barley on Bethlehem. And with the return of bread to the house of bread, she concludes within herself that there is nothing to keep me here in Moab. There is nothing here for me to remain. My husband and my sons are gone. Therefore, I'm going to get up, pack my luggage, and head on down. I'm going back west to Bethlehem, to the house of bread. I have family and relatives there, and that's where I'm going to go. And without much convincing, Orpah decides to tell her mother-in-law, "You're right, it's time to go." Orpah goes, but Ruth remains. And what is it at this point that causes her to remain, to cling to her mother-in-law? And so here, Naomi says, leave and go back to your mother's house. But at verse 16 and 17 becomes those immortal words. I don't know how many weddings I have performed. It's in the hundreds, and I've almost read or quoted these words in every one of them, for they bear some weighty significance in us understanding the whole relationship of clinging to one another. Ruth says to Naomi, "Entreat me not to leave you." These words are not to be read casually. These are almost pledges, not almost. This is a pledge. This is a vow that she's making, the one that often we say unto one another, but this is a vow that she's making. And when she says, "Entreat me not to leave you," she's actually saying to Naomi, I beg you, don't make me go back home. I want to stay where you are. I want to be with peacefulness. And I have learned that at the hem of your dress, I beg you, don't make me go back home. Entreat me not to leave you or to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go. And wherever you live, I will live. Your people shall be my people, and your God shall be my God. Where you die, I will die. And there will I be buried, and the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. When Ruth said those words to Naomi, her eyes wet, tears burned down her dry cheeks. She looked back into the face of a girl, a Moabite, and it was that phrase, your God shall be my God. She was able to say it because Naomi had never treated her like an adjective, but
had treated her as a noun. She had never called her my sons-in-law, Moabite wife, but rather just Ruth. And when Ruth recognized the dignity and the value, the self-worth and the esteem that Naomi had given to her, she had a peace. And now that she saw that there was a confusion in Naomi, Ruth said, I want to give you refreshment. And that's what partnership does. When one's given peace, the other's given refreshment. Go on, preach, Pastor West. Your God shall be my God. Resonating in those words, you can hear where Jesus has come to do his redemptive work. And by the way, that is the key word to understand the story, Redeemer. Jesus has functioned at this level. Come follow me. One of them happens to be a Quisler, the Germans would call him, an insider, outsider working on the inside with the Nazis. A Jew working for the Nazi, a Quisler they would call him. The equivalent would be when Jesus said to Matthew, Levi, follow me, a tax collector. How dare Jesus call a tax collector? But Jesus said, I didn't call an adjective, I called a noun. I called Matthew, I didn't call a tax collector. Some of you will get it after a while. Come follow me. A zealot named Simon come. And they said, how would he get an insurrectionist to work in behalf of the kingdom building? Jesus said, you called him a zealot. I called him Simon. I just want the noun. You can have the adjective. And that's the beauty of what God does for us. He ain't never called you, come here drunkard, come here whore, come here prostitute, come here gay. He ain't never called you that. He just said, John, come to me. Betty, come to me. Frank, come to me. And all of the adjectives that come with you can drop out once I call you unto myself. I'm the one that can change the adjectives that describe your life. Your God shall be my God. And the scene shifts again. Westward they walk, Naomi and Ruth. And Naomi makes her way to the threshold of Bethlehem, and word quickly circulates throughout the house of bread that Elimelech's widow is back. Naomi is here. Peace has come back to Bethlehem, and the people cheer and they applaud and they celebrate that peace has come back to the house of bread. And Naomi says, don't call me Naomi. God has dealt bitterly with me. Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because I have suffered the afflictions from the hand of God. Naomi speaks like a lot of us, in a kind of what I want to call egotistic, in a kind of egotistic defiance. It's the idea that whatever happens to you, that you are the cause of every bad thing that happens in your environment. It's this kind of egocentric way of looking at life, that if life doesn't turn out like you planned it, then it's something that you have done wrong to inherit all of this affliction that has come upon your life. I don't mean to burst your egomaniacal disposition, but you're not that important to the cosmos that God would postpone all of life just to execute affliction on you all by yourself. This is why the creation narrative is so vital to the understanding of redemption. That Simon Veal, the Holocaust survivor, Veal, says that in creation God desisted from being everything so that you could be something. I want to say it again because I know you missed that. Veal says that in creation God stopped being everything so that you could be something. In the vernacular of a card game, God gave away some of his power to you so that you could participate in the whole creation factor yourself. And so we're not so important, and the decisions that we make are not so cosmic and catastrophic that whatever we do is going to postpone everything in life and make us inherit all of the inflictions of life. It could be some afflictions have come your way so that God can get the best out of your very life. Has nothing to do sometimes with the decisions that you've made, other than God feels like he can trust you. And I know some of you live by the theology of Bobby Womack. I really wish he didn't trust me so much. But when God has invested a lot in you, he got to do all he can to get his investment out of you. People are sitting here this morning under the weight of guilt and shame. This kind of ego, this self-absorbed idea that the reason why I didn't get the job is because last year I did this, and the reason why I'm having this trouble is because I was involved in that, or I did this and I've been in that. And so you feel like God plays the game of I'll get you back. Tit for tat. You do right, I'll bless you. Do wrong, and I'll curse you. The fact is, the sun shines on the just as well as the unjust. And if the Lord ever played tit for tat for us, we never would show up in this room. We wouldn't survive a day. It's been by his grace that we are here. But God has afflicted me. I'm dealing with the affliction. And so she says, when I came to Bethlehem, I was full. I had Elimelech, my husband, my friend, my confidant. I had Milan and I had Kilian, my children. I had that. I was full when I went out. But now that I've come back, I buried all of them in foreign soil. Don't call me peaceful. There ain't no peace in me. There's nothing but despair because I'm afflicted. I got many wounds. I got burdens. I got stripes. I don't know. Don't call me Naomi. But you know what? God can help you when you go out full and come back empty. Life got a way of emptying you. Life got a way of emptying you of your joys, your hopes, your dreams, your power, your position, your love, your hope. Life got a way of doing it. So if you're empty, what do? Do you just sit up there and say, call me bitter? I don't want to live like that. So how do I make it then if I'm on empty? One thing you can do is learn how to hope in the face of despair. Don't underestimate the power of hope. Hope becomes a choice in which you stare life in the face and say that I'm going to make it. I don't care if I got to live with one string in my banjo. I'm going to live. I'm going to make music. It may not be no symphony, but I'm going to make some music. I learned back then as a college freshman that that's what hope looks like. If there's any piece of anything left, I can make it. I ain't got to have a loaf of bread, just a piece. I ain't got to have a full cup of water, just some. I ain't got to have a happy life, just wake up in the morning. That's hope. Go out full. You come back empty, hope in the face of despair. But you also learn something else, and that is you just learn to make the best out of a bad mess. sometimes life, oh my goodness, you can have it all mapped out. Things can just be going right along, and then just one event turn your world upside down. It becomes a mess. But it's up to you if you're going to have lemons or lemonade. All you got to do is squeeze lemon. You got lemon juice. Put a little water, find some sugar. You can make some lemonade. And I ain't stretching, because that's what Naomi said. She said, I'm bitter, but I'm here to tell you, we may not have called her sweetie in the text, but today you can leave here saying, I came in bitter, but I got a new name. Call me sweetie. God has given some delight to my life. I got to quit. Let me give you something else. When you go out empty, and you come in, when you go out full and you come in empty, go back, return to where your hope and your help can be found. She decided if Elimelech is dead in Moab, if Mahlon and Chilion are dead, I ain't got nothing here. Ruth and Orpah are my daughters-in-law. By law, they ain't got no binding allegiance to me, but back home, Elimelech got some relatives. And now some relatives in Bethlehem that due to me being married to Elimelech, I become their responsibility. And all I got to do is get back to Bethlehem. And I ain't got to worry about how I'm going to eat, where I'm going to sleep, how I'm going to be taken care of. And that's why the church is such a blessed privilege in the life of Christians, because a whole lot of us came in here today empty. But when folks stand up around you, clap their hands, sing and the music play, and the prayers are prayed, and the scriptures read, and the preacher preached, God got a way of stopping by your seat, grabbing you by the shoulder and saying, I ain't forgot you. I know you thought I forgot you, but I haven't forgot you. I know your name. I know your address. And just because you don't see me working, don't mean I forgot about you. I'm working behind the scene. Oh, I'm through. But when you go out full and you come back empty, just remember this God of ours is able to keep up with the promises that he makes. I'm going to sit down now. Some years ago, I was invited to preach for the Southern Baptist at an evangelism conference, and they were having this gathering in Palestine, Texas, just up the road, I-45 North. That particular day, I had a friend of mine in town, David Larry Boyle, from Memphis, Tennessee, and he said, I'll go with you. So we get into the car, we drive up 45. Almost there on the long stretch of road where no one was there but me and the road, my light comes on, my car, indicating that I'm about ready to find the nearest fill-in station. So there I am driving, looking for a filling station. But I don't see no filling station, but I got a fancy little car, so I decide, let me touch the range button indicator, depress it to find out how many miles I have. And so there it is, light on, depressing the button, 10 miles flash up. I said, I can make it. I'm sure we can find a filling station in 10 miles. I said, oh boy, you and I are going to be filling in, pushing to the station. There we are driving, and all of a sudden, the thing didn't say nothing to us. Hyphens just start flashing on the computer deck. I said, it's time to find a filling station. At this point, panic is about to grip me. Despair and desperation is rising. And I remembered that I had in my glove compartment a manual. And I said, boy, open that glove compartment, flip through the pages of that manual, find out what it says about this gas business. Boy, open it up, he started reading, he found gas, the tank. I said, we don't need to know how to get in it. We need to know what's in it. We look at it, and it gives us a description. It talks about the light as an indicator you need gas. I said, don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. The leverage is past E. We know we're in trouble. Light on, past E, indicator flashing hyphens. But then in italicized writing with an asterisk, it says, but don't panic, because once you get to this level, there is a built-in reserve that will kick in that will give you an extra 30 miles. I gotta go, but when you find yourself empty, pick up the manual, read the instructions, and let God take you to your next destination. And when they got to Bethlehem, it says it was the beginning of the barley harvest. Remember in the first verses it said there was a barrenness in Bethlehem. There was no bread in Bethlehem. No bread in the house of bread. But now in the last verse it says when they got home, it was the beginning of the barley harvest. Just because you left one way doesn't mean it's going to be the same way when you get back there. For the God that brings you out is the same God that can take you in. Oh, my goodness. That's why we sing sometimes. Guide me, oh, thy great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. Here it is, bread of heaven. I'm going to sit down right there. Bread. I didn't mean to go this far. Bread of heaven. Feed me till I want no more. That's why I come to church. I come because there's bread here. I come here because there's filling here. And when I get to church, I can tell the Lord, thank you for filling me till I want no more. Have I got a witness here? Is there anybody here? Know my Jesus is the bread of life. If you're hungry, he'll be your bread. If you're thirsty, he'll be your water. If you're weak, he'll be your strength. If you're confused, he'll be your guide. Want to do it? Hey, hey, hey.
Matters of the heart should never be taken lightly. There's just too much writing on it. How about your heart? Is it right with God? Church, try it again for the first time.